So I'm just going to watch some video clips. I talked out about this. There's some inconsistencies, and before you put a man to death, you got to be for sure. You got to be for sure it was him.
Right now, we are following the story of Marcellus Williams. Breaking news, a judge will not vacate the conviction and death sentence of Missouri inmate Marcellus Williams. He's facing execution for killing Lisha Gale in her home in 1998. He's scheduled to die by lethal injection on September 24th. Defense attorneys claimed during a hearing in August that evidence shows Williams' DNA was not on a knife used in the murder. They say the case was mishandled, but the judge ruled there is no basis for a court to find that Williams is innocent, and no court made such a finding. Williams' lawyers can appeal that judge's decision.
Person is not incarcerated, but also not executed. Like that definitely should be, where we completely draw a line in the sand.
Williams is on the death row for the 1998 death of Lisha Gale. He agreed to an Alford plea on August 21st, which allowed him to maintain his claim of innocence while still being convicted of first-degree murder in Gale's death. Gale was a social worker who previously worked as a reporter for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
I believe that, the evidence and its mishandling definitely had an effect on the case overall. And we don't know what would have happened had the evidence not been mishandled, had it not, not been lost, had it not been basically destroyed for evidentiary purposes.
Testing revealed Williams' DNA was not on the knife used in the murder, leading some to argue that he was not the killer. But then questions were raised about the DNA evidence being mishandled and contaminated by the original members of the prosecution team. Williams agreed to take a plea deal where he would spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole, but would avoid execution.
So there's two weird things that's going on, two things I want to mention. So the Alford plea. Why would you take an Alford plea? You're innocent. Why would you take an Alford plea? All right, fine, I'll just do the life in prison thing. Why would you do that? Why would you do that if you're innocent? Maybe he didn't see any other way out of this thing. Maybe he just says, even though he's innocent, they're kind of cornering him and they're railroading him. And then the thing on his side is that there's DNA evidence. There's DNA evidence on the knife. Well, I trust DNA. I trust DNA. And so if there is DNA evidence that's on the knife and it is not his, is it the husband's? And then there's Asaro. He's got like this girlfriend that had some of the stolen property. And so is it hers? Whose DNA is on the knife? She's going to get stabbed. So her DNA is there, but is there other DNA that's on the knife? And this is, back in 98 or so when all this stuff went down, the DNA wasn't like huge. And then now they're talking about the DNA. So I just feel like, who the hell does that DNA belong to? I want to know that question. That is a definitive question. Is it foreign DNA? Is it unknown who the DNA belongs to? Do they have another match, another suspect? Have they tried to put it, through a database? They got a database of DNA, right? So that's on his side, the DNA thing. Against him, the Alford plea, but that just, that could be a tactical mistake on his part.
However, Missouri attorney Andrew Bailey opposed that deal and went to the Missouri Supreme Court to stop it. St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney Wesley Bell released a statement, and it reads in part, "There are detailed and well-documented concerns regarding the integrity of Mr. Williams' conviction. My office has done everything we could to bring those concerns before the courts and to demonstrate that the evidence in question is compromised." On Thursday, a judge said there is no basis for a court to find that Williams is innocent, and no court has made such a finding. Motion to vacate or set aside Williams' conviction and sentence is hereby denied. Defense attorney Herman Jemerson has represented people in numerous criminal cases and is saddened by the ruling.
Today is a sad day for Missouri. It's a day that Missouri decided to tinker with death. It's a day that they decided that a man who's found innocent based on DNA evidence is now saying, forget that. We're going to find you. We're going to kill you anyway.
Now, Marcellus Williams' defense team say they will continue to pursue all options to try and stop the execution.
So that's, that's
there
pretty
were no
good.
suspects and no one arrested in either of those cases. A little over a year later, the victim in this case, Mrs. Gale, her husband, who is the doctor.
It's trippy because it's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. They're trying to say you got to prove your innocence, you got to prove that you were innocent. Well, alibi, I guess that's the only way. How do you prove you're innocent? You got to get an alibi. You have to have some security tape. alibi. I guess that's, and people could lie, but alibi, just a security camera or something, security footage, have it time stamped, and then those are the hours and the time that you walked in but didn't walk out. How do you prove that? Maybe, I guess, have a job, from the 8 hours that I clocked in, I was here to the time I clocked out. Well, you could have left the job, right, and come back. So how do you prove your innocence? That's like the DNA. He's right. The DNA evidence says he's innocent, but this judge is like, nah, I don't care.
Doctor, he decided to offer a $10,000 reward for someone to come forward with information because, he and his family wanted justice for the killing of his wife. Right. So once he offered that $10,000 reward, several people came forward basically saying that Khalifa had confessed to killing this victim. And those people one was a girlfriend, someone he was dating, and another person was a person he met in jail. So, we all call that a jailhouse foreman or a jailhouse snitch. Right. So these two particular people who I've actually learned knew each other. The informant and the person in jail. And
how they know each other. That's incredible. So the person, the jailhouse snitch, and then the ex-girlfriend just so happened to know each other. They just so happen to know each other. I want to hear so much more from this case. I want to hear who the husband is. I want to hear the husband talk. And then I want to hear the Asaro, the ex-girlfriend. I want to hear the jailhouse snitch. And then apparently the laptop was sold to a dude. I want to hear all this stuff. Maybe there's some other videos somewhere else. Let's just do a couple more clips of this.
The prosecutor's DNA is on the weapon, and also that investigator means that there was some type of breakdown in the chain of custody and the handling of that material. And a few weeks ago, August 28th, when the hearing was held, that original prosecutor, he got on the stand and testified, and he basically said that, yes, I did handle the knife without any gloves. He said, the trial again happened 3 years after the murder. And
that doesn't change anything. The blood is still the blood. So even if you touch the blood, even if you put it, just rub it all over your face and shit, that blood is still blood. It's not going to contaminate it. It's almost like they're saying, yeah, the DNA don't prove the case, but I fucked up the evidence. So fuck his life anyways. I mean, there's the DNA evidence that is just hard to ignore.
And because they had already run the fingerprint testing and the blood testing, he felt like it was okay for him to handle the knife without gloves. I actually said he did it all the time, which is concerning. They also don't believe in death penalty, so they would be satisfied.
I'll leave that up to our viewers based on the preponderance of information that you gave us. The facts of his case is in public record. But talk about Khalif. How is he doing, and what kind of person is Khalif for the benefit of our audience?
So Khalifa is, again, his birth name was Marcellus Williams. He has been a very devout Muslim for many, many years, and he took upon the Islamic name Khalifa upon his Shahada, which is that naming ceremony. He is also the imam at the prison he's in. So he is a person that is looked 15th from 6th.
Should we check in with Jimmy Dore? No, they're going to a commercial. Man.
Mike Bush. Williams was convicted of killing former St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporter Felicia Gale. Our Justina Cornell has been following the back-and-forth legal battle and joins us in the newsroom with the very latest. Justina?
Well, the biggest question right now is what's next? Marcellus Williams may be out of legal options, and his fight right now is against time.
Always a person of immense faith, and he, holds to that.
She's describing her friend Marcellus Williams. Michelle Smith is also the co-founder for Missourians to Abolish the Vacated or Set Aside. Today, a judge ruled there wasn't any new, clear, and convincing evidence, and attorneys failed to demonstrate any basis to find him innocent. We asked one legal expert about next steps.
It seems he exhausted most of those things now, but the court has just ruled again. So the question now, does he have any appealable rights after that? Because the court just ruled. I don't know. I think, in my opinion, it's a long shot.
Clemency could be on the table as it's a race against the clock.
Clemency comes from the governor, state of Missouri, and I'm afraid to say that they may be closely aligned with the AG's office. I think.
So I heard that there was an appeal. He could file the appeal, that said that it was the basic court and it could be appealed.
It's very difficult.
I know that people
I feel like the lawyer's just kind of getting tired of, having to deal with this case.
who of faith believe in miracles, and our governor says he is a person of faith.
Your host, MHB. Today, we're unraveling a haunting tale. Lisha Gale, a former St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporter, was brutally murdered in her own home in the University City suburb of St. Louis, Missouri. Gale was stabbed between 10 and 43 times with a butcher knife taken from her kitchen. The scene was nothing short of a bloodbath, and the crime shook the community to its core. Felicia Gale was not only a journalist, but a philanthropist and volunteer. She lived with her husband, Dr. Daniel Picus, in their secure, gated community. That security, however, wasn't enough to prevent the tragedy that would change their lives forever. The initial investigation yielded an abundance of forensic evidence, including fingerprints, footprints, hair, and DNA traces on the knife. Despite this, it wasn't until a reward was offered that two informants, Henry Cole and Lara Asaro.
That's crazy. They found fingerprints, and then he said all that evidence. They found blood on the knife and fingerprints and bloody footprints.
Implicated Marcellus Williams. Both informants had prior convictions and stood to gain from their testimonies. Cole claimed he heard Williams confess while they were in jail together. And Asaro, Williams' former girlfriend.
Anybody could just say that. I mean, I want to hear the guy say it out loud so I can tell if that guy's telling the truth, Well, he just said it. He said. Okay, well, case closed.
Said she found evidence in Williams' car.
Look at these
Their
images.
accounts played a crucial role in his conviction, despite their inconsistencies and the informant's questionable credibility. In 2001, Williams was convicted of Gale's murder by a predominantly white jury and sentenced to death. He has always
predominantly is 11 white folks and one person of color.
He's maintained his innocence. Over the years, appeals have highlighted significant issues with the case, including DNA evidence from the knife that did not match Williams, but rather revealed an unknown male profile. Despite this, the Missouri Supreme Court did not halt the execution. In 2017, just hours before he was set to be executed, then Governor Eric Greitens issued a stay of execution, initiating a board of inquiry to examine the new DNA evidence. The board's findings indicated that Williams was not the source of the DNA found on the murder weapon. Fast forward to 2023, Governor Mike Parson dissolved the board without its final report and lifted the stay, paving the way for a new execution date. Prosecuting attorney Wesley Bell filed a motion to vacate Williams's conviction, citing the new DNA evidence and potential bias during the original trial. However, Attorney General Andrew Bailey pushed back, and the Missouri Supreme Court set September 24, 2024 as the execution date. On August 21, 2024, Williams accepted an offered plea offered by the prosecution to commute his. As of now, the fight for justice continues and potential flaws within our justice system. It serves as a critical these gripping cases. Stay safe,
He left that career to pursue other endeavors and volunteer work, mostly social work as a volunteer. In 1998, Felicia married her longtime friend since childhood, Dr. Daniel Picus. The marriage took place in University City, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis, where Dr. Picus and Felicia were also living. That same year of their marriage, 1998, Felicia was alone when someone broke into her secure, gated community home in University City. The intruder proceeded to stab Felicia 43 times, killing her.
If it's in a gated community, I kind of want to see where the placement of the house is too. Because if it's in a gated community, he would have had to found, some other way to get in. And then if you get in a different way, is this the first house that's there? Why out of, like 100 houses in a gated community, why did he pick that one? There's just a lot of questions,
Then proceeded to steal Felicia's purse, her laptop, and some other items from around the house. The killer then grabbed a jacket belonging to Felicia's husband, Dr. Picus, and put it on so that he can cover the blood on his shirt. A short time later, on this day, a man named Marcellus Scott Williams arrived in his Buick. A jacket belonging to Felicia's husband, Dr. Picus, and put it on so that he can cover the blood on his shirt. A short time later, on this day, a man named Marcellus Scott Williams arrived in his Buick LeSabre to pick up his girlfriend, Laura Asaro. Laura would later testify at trial, providing a description of the jacket that Williams was wearing and that he had a lot of blood on his shirt. Williams had told his girlfriend that he killed a woman and stole her stuff, and that if she ever opens her mouth, the same will happen to her. Dr. Daniel Picus arrived home later that evening to discover the horrific scene in his house with his newlywed wife, with an inmate who was just recently released, Felicia Gale. And when they turned over a laptop that he said was sold to him by Marcellus Williams. That laptop was Felicia's laptop. About 3 weeks after the murder of Felicia Gale, Marcellus Williams was arrested for another crime and had been in jail ever since. Williams's defense attorneys have argued that there was no DNA, no fingerprints or hair or anything of Williams at the crime scene. A DNA case else that was in the home of friend Laura Amaro somehow got a hold of personal items belonging to the home of Felicia Gale and placed them in his car while he was in jail. While at the same time, Henry Cole, just released from jail, was calling police to say, hey, just so you know, Marcellus Williams told me that he killed that woman. And you would have to believe that one of them conspired with the man who had Felicia Gale's laptop to say that it was sold to him by Marcellus Williams.
Is it not possible to put, a damn laptop into the damn trunk of somebody while they're in jail? They knew each other somehow. How did that, jailhouse snitch and his ex-girlfriend, how did they know each other? I don't know. I don't know, man.
That is what you would have to believe. Who needs DNA when you have that?
The DNA, it proves the damn case. The DNA is everything. The DNA is everything. Test the DNA right now. Test the DNA right now. Like, I'm not a big DNA expert, but I feel like if they have DNA, it's like, oh, shit. If your DNA is on the scene, it's like, well, damn, that's it, right? OJ, that DNA was on the scene. That's what they said.
Actually agreed to life in prison, but the Missouri Attorney General's office fought to move.
If there's DNA, then that means there's blood, there's semen, there's spit, there's saliva, there's a hair sample, right? If DNA is just like, a lot of times fingerprints would be a partial fingerprint or some shit, but they even got fingerprints. They didn't find any of his fingerprints on anything. He walks in, he grabs a knife and just stabs him and then takes a couple things, and then they got fingerprints. Well, whose fingerprints did they get? Whose DNA do they have? I don't care if they mishandled it. Tell me, who do you think the DNA is most likely to be? Because it's clearly somebody else.
Forward with Williams' death sentence.
Ignores the scientific fact that DNA evidence was not proven against this man.
DNA evidence, or the lack thereof, led to Williams getting a new hearing, but authorities admitted the murder weapon was contaminated by the detectives who handled the investigation back then. But that wasn't enough to convince the judge. In statements, St. Louis County prosecuting attorney Wesley Bell, who represented Williams, and the Innocence Project said they will fight to save Williams' life. But Bell and the Innocence Project didn't definitively say if they would appeal the case. St. Louis University criminal justice professor Kenya Brumfield-Young says they should.
We are literally looking at a technicality on forensic science. And I think that since there's such a large probability that he did not commit this offense, then I think that it would be doing a huge disservice to not only Marcellus, but people's perception of the criminal justice system.
Another option is clemency from Missouri Governor Mike Parson. His office tells First Alert 4 it met with lawyers for Williams, and a decision could likely come the day before the execution.
People who of faith believe in miracles, and our governor says he is a person of faith.
Smith is praying for a Hail Mary.
Yeah, goodness gracious. He's going to say something the day before. He's going to do that to minimize any of the protest or disruption. He's going to have, if you're going to say it the day before, are you looking at the case and then you're like, all right, well, I set a date for me to make a judgment on this damn thing?
Yes, Jazz.
I would, if I was the judge, I would look at the DNA. I would get a bunch of DNA experts in there and then hear what the DNA experts have to say. Not just two random ass fucking lawyers. I would get DNA experts. Because the DNA tells the tale. You got hair, you got footprints, you got fingerprints, you got blood, and none of that points to Marcellus Williams. You know, I read some other things about this case, like the stuff being in his trunk, that does seem, suspicious. The Alford plea seems suspicious. But does that prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it? There's no videotape, there's no witnesses. Everything at that scene doesn't say it's him. So to say that it is him, you're going to have to believe basically an ex-girlfriend who she could have done the damn thing, or a jailhouse snitch who is in there for some shit too. So you'd have to believe basically two possible criminals, Oh, well, these two other criminals, they said it was you. So we're going to go with the words of the other criminals. Like, Jesus Christ.
In just a few days, the case of Marcellus Williams will return to court in a pivotal hearing that could determine his fate. Williams was convicted and sentenced to death in the 1998 stabbing death of Lisha Gale, a former social worker and St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporter. January 2024, however, Attorney General Andrew Bailey continues to push for the execution, disregarding this new evidence.
With the prosecutor being, on the side of justice right now, even though, like you said, last 30 years has been different, but in the last couple of years, we have seen the prosecutors in St. Louis City and in Kansas City, Missouri, have had success with getting people exonerated.
We are still waiting on a response from Attorney General Andrew Bailey, but St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell's office stated they are waiting to be heard by the court before addressing this matter publicly. The upcoming hearing on August 21st will see Bell's and Bailey's offices present their cases.
Article before I sign off. Police check out leads in slaying a former Post-Dispatch reporter. Burglaries may provide clue to fatal stabbing in University City home. Police said late Wednesday that they had found no motive, no suspect in the fatal stabbing of Felicia Ann Gay Picus, a former Post-Dispatch reporter, volunteer, advocate for the disadvantaged. Lisha Gale, as she is known, was found stabbed to death Tuesday evening in her home in University City. Police responded to a 911 call about 7:50 p.m. and discovered Gale's body. The house is in the 6900 block of Kingsbury Boulevard. Police released few details. We feel like we've got some promising leads, said Captain Jeffrey Keller. Sergeant Roger Spearman said Gale's husband, Dr. Daniel Picus, a Barnes Jewish Hospital radiologist, was at home when police arrived. He would not say whether Picus phoned police. Gale, 42, had been stabbed more than 10 times. Spearman said the police found a knife near her body. Police said they were trying to determine whether the murder was linked to a break-in and burglary in the neighborhood on July 20th. Broken glass was found at Gale's home. Police wouldn't say where, but investigators said it was not yet clear whether the broken glass was a result of a break-in. Police wouldn't say whether anything was taken. The house is in a private subdivision called Ames Place. The community is gated to keep out vehicular traffic, but allows pedestrians entry. Neighbors said the area is quiet, mostly inhabited by professionals and academics. This is one of the best neighborhoods in the area, said Lee Durham, Gale's next door neighbor. It really kind of floored us. Family members and some of Gale's friends said that as a reporter and as an advocate, Gale was often remarkably sensitive to others and often saw the good in people. She recently wrote in a letter to a reporter, evil likes to sniff out a person's weakness and attack from there. Gale reported for the Post-Dispatch for 11 years, from 1981 to 1992. After resigning from the paper, she volunteered, tutored children, and championed environmental and other social causes. She might have been diminutive in size, but she was never afraid to stand up for what she believed in, said Ellen Gardner, an assistant managing editor at the Post-Dispatch who hired Gale in 1981. She'd plant those little feet in those big clunky shoes and stand her ground. Gale had an unaffected demeanor, style of dress characterized by her waist-length hair, Birkenstock-style shoes. At 5'1", Gale was slight of stature, but colleagues remember her as having a big heart. Anytime that Lisha Gale sank her teeth into something, she pursued it vigorously, said John Brophy, The paper's newsroom administrator, Brophy, said the newsroom recycles its paper because Gail instigated an internal recycling program in the late 1980s. Gail was remembered for sending kind notes to colleagues, congratulating them for doing jobs well, and commiserating with them about deaths in the family. Bill Bryan, a reporter, covered the police beat with Gail during the early 1980s. She was well liked by police, he said, and was an avid feminist. She used to joke about changing the word manhole to personhole in stories. He said, added retired Captain Bob Richters, former commander of the St. Louis Police Department district that includes downtown. She was such a nice, decent person. She was always pleasant. Gail was passionate about helping children, the second born in a family of 8. They're not really talking about the case. Second born in a family of 8, Gail had no children of her own, but volunteered in schools, tutoring children on writing and other skills. She grew close to one family, tutoring the 3 daughters, taking them to the symphony and home with her to bake them cookies. She suffered with the family, too, when one of the girls, Paris Williams, 9, was killed in an auto accident last August. A Rockford, Illinois native, Gail got her bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Illinois. She and her childhood sweetheart, Daniel Picus, were married for 18 years. 18 years, it's a 7-year itch, so is that 11 years too long? In addition to her husband, among survivors are her parents, Veronica Spearman. We'd rather protect our investigation and catch the person involved than provide details to reassure the community. I need your reassurance. I'm tired of these damn cops saying, oh, we'll get around to it. Yeah, you'll get around to it, my fucking ass. Let's see if Picus, Daniel Picus, let's see if we can pull anything up for him. Do we have his statement anywhere? Do we have his statement anywhere? Because I just saw a thing where black dude, you know, he was the one on the scene. He's the one that called 911, and he said he didn't do it, but the police weren't really listening to him, and he's going to get thrown into the paddy wagon and then convicted. And so, I mean, how come we're not even like questioning, where is this Daniel Picus? There is nothing about Daniel Picus at all. Where is Daniel Picus? What has he been doing to? What has he been up to? Does he believe it? You know, does he believe it was this guy, Marcellus Williams? And then they said something about a break-in, burglary in the neighborhood. Broken glass was found at Gail's home. They say nothing. They basically say nothing. You would think the broken glass had to do with the break-in, right? So that would indicate that a burglary happened. But then the husband, I mean, I guess in a way, if people are, yeah, they have to ask the question, are they intelligent enough to try to cover it up? Is this, you know, he's Dr. Picus, right? Dr. Picus, could he have busted out the window and be like, well, I got to paint the scene up in a certain way. They're going to come up on the scene and this is what they're going to think. I don't know. The DNA evidence is hard. It's impossible. The DNA evidence to me is impossible to ignore. It's impossible. I want to get justice for Lisha Gail, and so the DNA evidence should point to either the suspect or somebody else. And if the real killer is out there somewhere, and we're all focused on this other guy and put him through hell, when the real killer is out there, you know, shame on us. What the fuck? And I'd like to, you know, before you just throw a person in jail, why don't you get another suspect or 2? Get 3 different suspects, 3 different leads, you know, just putting it all on one person, and then the whole investigation, the whole system just kind of puts it all on one person. Oh, it wasn't the white husband. No, it was the black man. Oh, okay. Well, this random ass black man that was already sitting in jail. That's who it was. The grandfather is the one that had the Buick. What did he say? You know, there's just, and then the courts don't even tell us, like, I read the appeal. So I read the appeal, and only what the appeal had said. They had concocted, you know, their likely, what they thought had happened. So shit, man. Clock's ticking.